Hello, we are back with Picturing New Orleans. I'm so excited about this because I feel like so often when we think of words and music, we don't really include these rich books that are photography based, that have a lot of words, but that aren't like sort of traditionally thought of as literature, but that still really speak in unique ways to our city and what we're all about. And so we're really honored to have three local photographers, Cheryl Gerber, Polo Silk, and Leigh Wright, who each do very different kinds of photography, but who also each sort of embody a nook and cranny of our city that deserves love and respect and recognition. So to bring them on, it is my honor to introduce our moderator for this session, Julian Bad Juju Jackson, who is an educator and a photographer, and also the brother of longtime friend of Words and Music and One Book, One New Orleans, Sky Jackson. So, Julian, welcome.
Hey, thank you. It's so wonderful to be here. This is truly an honor. I am humbled by the experience to be around such talented artists and photographers. It's truly the beginnings of dreams coming true. So thank you so much for having me.
All right, if we want to bring up our panelists, we can do that really quickly. I'll introduce them if you don't mind, Julian.
Oh, please take it away.
All right, cool. Cheryl Gerber is an award-winning photographer whose book's name I am going to butcher. Her first book is really easy to pronounce because it's called New Orleans, Life and Death in the Big Easy. I own it. If you guys do not, go out and get it from our virtual bookstore powered by Tubby and Coos. Her newest book is Cherchez la Femme.
Cherchez la Femme is a French word for look for the woman.
There you go. This book is beautiful and really captures the women of New Orleans, which I think is such a cool idea for a book. And she had this beautiful opening exhibit at the old U.S. Mint, now the Jazz Museum. I hope some of you guys were lucky enough to catch that. Next, we have Polo Silk.
Hello, everybody.
Again, hi, at Club Adidas in 1987, Club Adidas on Canal Street. And he's been photographing bounce and hip hop culture really since the mid 80s. His archive was spared during Katrina, which was a miracle. And after that, he starts showing this really rich archive of New Orleans before the storm at many places, including the Ogden Museum of Southern Art, which then led to this book, Pop That Thing, which is also available in the bookstore. And last but not least, we have Leigh Wright, a photographer who has written Local Life, which talks a lot about service industry folks who I think are all in our minds really heavy in 2020. And Leigh Wright, when she's not a photographer, is also a world traveler and ethnographer. So without further ado, I'm going to disappear and let Julian take this away.
Hello, all. How are we doing?
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
It's good, yo. This is yet again a wonderful experience that I'm truly honored to be in your presence. There are so many things that I'm so curious about and just would like to, in reading your individual biographies, I see so many similarities and also differences that make you the artist that you are and yet still keep you within the realm of the art itself. And I find it to be absolutely fascinating. I don't even know where to begin or who to begin with. So I guess I'll just start directly to the right of me with Cheryl Gerber.
Oh, great.
the freelance journalist, documentarian photographer working in New Orleans. I mean, the New York Times, the Associated Press, the New Orleans Magazine, staff photographer for the Gambit Weekly since 1994. I mean, from what I can already see, you've been very busy for quite some time.
Until now.
Are we all?
Yeah.
No, but this is good, right?
We're not alone.
It's never a bad thing, right? I'm sure all of you have found yourselves, at times just running yourselves ragged. So I'm sure that along with all the very sad things that this lockdown has brought to our lives. It also has brought a great deal of restfulness, and so I'm just curious to see how that's translated for you, for all of you, to be honest, in terms of like planning the future. Like now, what can I really go out and capture? Just things of that nature. And now I'm gonna stop talking. I'll just let you go.
Well, for me, I'm used to transitioning. I started off as a reporter. Never thought about photography as a living, but I was such a bad reporter that I started taking photographs to go with my stories. And I noticed that when my editor would read my stories, he'd cover them in red ink. And it was like somebody just bled all over the page. But when I put a photo with it, it was a little less red ink. And so I was like, it's a lot easier to take a picture. If a picture paints 1,000 words, then just take a picture instead of writing 1,000 words. So I started doing that, and I worked for newspapers for a long time. As we know, print media is on life support right now. So about, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago, after Katrina was pretty much, not a news story anymore, and the BP oil spill, I started transitioning to do more event work. A lot more cultural things like that, thinking that events will never go away. Maybe journalism will go away, but events will never go away. But that was before coronavirus. So I'm still, as I'm sure Leigh and Polo are kind of in this place right now, where just trying to figure it all out. Like, what next? There's not a lot to document right now as far as culture, because we don't have anything going on. So it's up for grabs. But, opportunities come and go. They've come my whole life, and I don't expect that they're going to stop now.
If anything, it's just going to keep picking up, right? I mean, it's the beauty of what you do. The more that you put out into the world, the more receptive that people become to what you're putting out into the world.
True.
I mean, true. Well, what's your take on that, Leigh and Polo? Like, in terms of now, how you capture something that is essentially not happening, I guess. So like now, what is it that you look for, when you go out and decide to take photographs and document what's happening right now? What do you look for in a time when it seems as if, nothing's happening?
Polo, you want to go first?
I don't know. It's kind of like a calm. It's going to be like a calm after the storm. It's like we're going through a storm now. Myself, I've been working on this project called the Al Green Wicker Chair Experience, where I've just been shooting people from this iconic album cover that Al Green sat in his wicker chair, and just photographing different people in different sites or wherever they're at in the city, and shooting them and just let them do them, just to keep some things going. But the calm after the storm, you just got to be ready for it, and it gives us a little break. I mean, I think I've been nonstop. The only time I really stopped was Katrina for a while. I was in Atlanta, but as soon as they said the city was open back up, they was having the first, second line. I started packing my bags, and I didn't even pack much. I got whatever I could have wear for a couple 2 days, and I said I'll come back for the rest to get back home to be ready. I was so anxious because I used to be in Atlanta, sitting on my porch playing second line music, and the neighbors was wondering what's going on with you. I mean, this is what we do on Sundays.
Yeah, I mean, I think for myself, any kind of creative project that I have comes from basically a restlessness that I have. And so COVID has obviously sequestered a lot of us and made us quarantine. And I got fairly restless for the past couple of months. So I ended up writing and having a friend design like a new kind of travel interactive notebook. But I won't launch it because there's no one traveling here, so that's just kind of something that I created and I won't do anything with right now. But then the other weekend, I started a new documentary short with a friend of mine on music in New Orleans. And so we actually got together some people, and it's working with an all-female crew. So like our camera woman was a woman. Our editor is going to be a woman. I'm kind of like the researcher. That's kind of like my role in Jam. Is like I like to go very deep down a rabbit hole and try to make sense of stuff. So that's been kind of like a fun thing that we're doing, and just trying to figure out and do very, very small projects at the moment. Because I think with all the changes happening, I think any kind of slight win, it kind of boosts your self-esteem. So it's like going to be, like a 5-minute doc. It's not going to be anything, but it's at least something that we can do and produce and feel good about contributing.
Right, and keeping you busy, right? Because I mean, that's one thing that I find that so many of us have been struggling with is just actually being able to push ourselves to continue our creative pursuits, even when it seems so difficult to do so, right? When you have to take into consideration now all the things that you have to do when you go out now, and weigh whether that's worth it or not to actually be able to do your craft. You know, I mean, I find that to be one of the most pressing issues, at least for me right now. And I mean, and going into, you know, just knowing that, Leigh, with your experience in filmmaking and you know, that industry, that side of it, and Polo also getting into that, and Cheryl, you talking about that earlier, how does that kind of translate the media aspect of it into what you create in terms of, you consider yourself a photographer, a videographer, a documentarian, like all these, when I guess, and being relatively green in this art form, I just photography, and I guess, and naively assume that that's just all encompassing, but now I'm realizing there's so many different facets of that, and I would just like to, you know, get all of your different opinions on, you know, what exactly it is, or your subset of what it means to be a photographer. So if Cheryl, you can start that off, that'd be great.
You know, for me, I've taken so many pictures in my life, and I'm at a point now where I don't want to take the same picture again for the 50th time. So it has to be of worth to my community or to myself. So one example of that is, you know, early on, we started losing a lot of culture bearers in our community. We lost Ellis Marcellus, we lost Ronald Lewis, we lost, you know, I think it was Larry Hammond from the Zoo, you know, a former Zulu king. And ordinarily, those guys would have had a second line or a funeral befitting royalty, you know, and suddenly only 10 people could go. So it's not fair. But when Big Queen Kim Bute died, which was tragic, dying in of a gunshot wound, I had to weigh the risk. I'm very scared of the coronavirus, but I knew they were going to do a big funeral. And I've debated, and I have family who are elderly that I don't want to put at risk. But to me, it was like, okay, this is a risk that I'm going to have to take, even if I have to come back home and quarantine for 2 weeks. And that's what I did. You know, because I think it was so valuable for me to cover that after not being able to cover those other ones that happened early on. So,
I mean, I would have to say that I don't even necessarily use the moniker of photographer for myself personally. I think I get a lot of inspiration from visual art. Like, I like creating videos. That's kind of more my jam. But even when I was in Blue Cypress Books, like, I picked up Cheryl's book. I didn't even know that we were going to be on a panel together, but I picked up your book and I just started looking through it, and I was like, this is a great idea, you know? And so that kind of even like spawned the idea of how I now start doing this documentary short, because it's also like focusing on females. And so it's kind of from there that I'm more or less am like you, where I look up to people who can take really vibrant and like moving visual pictures, because my forte has been, I would like to say, more rudimentary, and I just like capturing in snapshots. So honestly, Polo, like, your other project sounds really interesting to me because I love Al Green. He was one of the first concerts that I've actually went to when I was a kid. But having like that stationary theme of just like the wicker chair and like the album cover that you know is in the back of your mind, and then having those rotations of other visuals, like different people coming through, like stuff like that, I just find like really inspirational, to where then it kind of just in the back of my head, and I'm like, okay, yeah, like here's like how I could build off of that, you know, which I think is a lot more what like artists, or as I would put myself more in the creator category, not necessarily even like an artist category. But all that kind of like blends into each other. So yeah, so that's why I was like, you know, my little pictures will always look like a United Color of Benetton ad. You know, it's like always going to be snapshots, like headshots of people and phasing, because I fall for the cheesy commercials of, you know, family members doing very mundane, ordinary things. Like, you know, I'm gonna be crying during Super Bowl ads. So that's just like my thing. Well, you know, other people can get a little bit more artsy than I do. So.
Wow.
That was a long one.
Great. What do you think, Polo? What's your take on usage of the media? I mean, being that you've essentially, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, the media has helped you tremendously with
the media has helped me a lot. Corona, like we're talking about, Corona has been a gift and a curse to me. I mean, we lost a lot of culture bearers. Some people I've been knowing all my life, grew up around and stuff like that. Not be able to, like Cheryl was saying, not be able to celebrate life like we do in New Orleans. I mean, we salute our culture bearers like royalty. And not being able to do that, we lost a lot of people like Miss Teresa, the Cassage lady, Mr. Earl Henry, who's I'm working a documentary on, and I was supposed to film him doing Mardi Gras because he was off from work and stuff. This is the guy who owned a legendary nightclub called The Detour, and we're actually working on a documentary with my photos to go along how it was in the 90s era at his club. His club was like one of the it spots to be on the weekends. It's one of the birthplace of the holy grails of hip hop. All like hip hop artists used to just come through there and just grab the mic for $3. And now some of these artists are like me and the Juvenile, the Big Frida, and all these worldwide international artists now. But they used to come up in there and just chill like we was like on Cheers. You go somewhere where everybody knows your name. So I'd be able to celebrate some of these people thing it was a hurting feeling. But also, I mean, social media doing this. My blessing was I started just doing live at different times of night. Then I just gravitated to just doing lives at 3 o'clock in the morning because in different parts of the world it's daytime, and I've been able to reach people all over the world. I mean, just during Corona, I've been able to sell my book in 17 different countries and like 39 to 40 different states. So I'm happy for my book, and I'm sad for what we're going for the city and the culture. But we're strong and resilient, and I know we're gonna bounce back even stronger.
So do you think that plays a major role in, I guess, pushing you forward and actually pushing you to go out and to say in your mind, I'm going to go do my best to capture these moments for a time such as this, like when we're experiencing the coronavirus? I mean, I've heard so many people say things as if like along the lines of, I can't wait until things get back to normal. And then you have the other guy that says, dude, things will never get back to normal. This is, for lack of a better phrase, even if it's not our new normal, it's on our way to a new normalcy of sorts, so it's like even things are going to change in some way, shape, or form, and I guess learning how to change with the times. How does one do that with, and also I guess be true to the original, like to be true to original New Orleans and what we're familiar with New Orleans as being, and also depict and show the world what we're known for, what we are, but also how we're changing, in these times. How do you, all of you, just go about that process within yourselves? If you'd like to take it away, Leigh.
Well, I think because the biggest part about tourism and what fascinates me in general is, there's tourism marketing, and then there are the items that people actually want to come and see. So tourism marketing now are like second line, jazz, Sazeracs, beignets. That's the kind of thing they're going to get. And they think that culture is black and white photos. They think it's history. They think it's stuff that's already passed and what made a place great. But a lot of times they don't consider like what is making it great as it moves forward. So true, New Orleans is the home of jazz. But like Polo says, like there's so many different musicians that have come up and produced so many other new, music genres. Like literally just bounce in general. Like not that many people visiting New Orleans are going to know or understand the history and the culture surrounding bounce. Yeah. So it's kind of like, I think for the most part, and I think what people are getting really good at in terms of trying to just discover new things, but also just shed light on how there is such even a through line, in between jazz and the beginning of jazz and then all the way into bounce and then moving forward. I think that's where like a lot of creative art is kind of being crafted at this moment. And I think that's what people are kind of looking at is like, yeah, well, like what didn't just happen 100 years ago, but what's happening now in terms of where we are.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree. Like, I mean, it's pretty fascinating though. Cause I mean, think about it. I mean, photography in and of itself, is the art, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, you know, the essence of capturing a moment in time. So it's like when you go out into the streets and you have empty streets, is that worth capturing? Is that moment in time worth capturing?
Right.
Is that
Well, you can see all those, like, you know, even Richard Campanella's books of the then and now. People were doing that with COVID. Like as soon as it started, you know, all of a sudden you have all these pictures of the 1918 flu and people getting on the streetcar with their masks on.
right.
You know, so you're doing this kind of like, did things change or did not change? Like what's happening now? You know, did it get better or are we just kind of like in the same pot that we used to be in? So I kind of like, again, like situations like that. Like I think there's still a ton of things to go out and capture. And in terms of myself, like I said, like even though there weren't a lot of people out on the street, it was nice actually to go and like ride my bike through the French Quarter again and kind of have that like peacefulness and be able to see and like reconnect with New Orleans because yeah, I'm working in TV and film. So I'm kind of computing and talking about everything that's not New Orleans in my normal life. So
right.
Quarantine helped me kind of like get back and like go through these old rituals that I used to have and be like, oh yeah, like this is why I live here. Like this is why I love it. And this is, you know, the people that I want to check in on. So, I mean, honestly, like for all the disruptions and heartache that it's brought us, it's also brought me like kind of a renewed sense of calm in a way.
Interesting. So what do you think, Polo? Do you and Cheryl, do you find that that's the case in terms of your own approach to photography or capturing moments? Do you think that, I guess, it doesn't really matter what is happening as long as you're out there? Is that part of it? Like, is that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we had to make some adjustments with Katrina. You know, it changed. We got a lot of the people that were here got displaced, and we had new people come in, and then new people didn't kind of, what you would say, not respected our culture, didn't love our culture. So we started getting complaints about, you know, we'll throw second soon a culture bearer dies, we're going to a house with a brass band, and we probably, if it's an Indian, every day we bringing them down until we put them in the ground, you know. And the new people just couldn't relate that and stuff like that. So we was able to adjust for Katrina and stuff, what happened that. So I know we'll be able to adjust with this thing with Corona and stuff and just come back bigger and stronger. That's just New Orleans.
Yeah, and some of the most powerful images that I've gotten lately have been the masks that only a New Orleanian would put messages, glitter, tassels, you know, all these things. You know, you look at other places and they have a paper mask on their face. But I mean, some of the masks that they wore at King Boutet's funeral were every bit as artful as a Mardi Gras Indian suit.
Oh yeah.
So I don't think anybody's going to be throwing away their mask when this is all over.
So I guess even there being something even indicative in how New Orleanians do the things that we do. You know, that's, I guess, always worth showcasing or capturing.
Yeah.
Even though we're having a bad season in Baton Rouge this year, but he's been flying off the racks. The undefeated national championship for LSU. I mean, I work with a friend of mine, Cedric Sweetwine. We got masses going out the door, whatever people want to put them on. It's sad that it's still New Orleans and the murder rate I'm just sad that the murder rate is still just going up when everything is supposed to be locked down. But the memories we're putting on these masses for people, it brings you some comfort, though.
And I guess so comfort, right? Comfort, the human experience is what drives you, what essentially motivates you to say, I want to go out and I want to do this. When, I mean, all of you are multi-talented. There are so many different other things that you could be doing that I'm sure if given the opportunity to do, you would probably be getting either paid more or maybe getting, you know, the things that typically as a human being we're supposed to want, right? The thing, you know, the stability, the job security, right? Like the things that come with just, I guess, trying to navigate in America and in the world in the 21st century, right? So it's like, is what makes you decide to say, I'm gonna forego all those things in the pursuit of what I love to do? So Cheryl, if you could take that away.
Yeah, I mean, and Polo and I have been doing this so long, and I'm sure you share this sentiment with me. Your motivations change over the years. In the beginning, when I started doing photography, it was like, oh, I can go to Jazz Fest for free, and
Yippee.
yeah, it's like, it was all about me and what I wanted to do. But sitting through this lockdown for the first time in my life and going through my negatives and my archives and my body of work, I see the importance of documenting history. It's not about me. It's about, the things that I photograph and having that to share with generations to come. And I see that in your work, Polo. You were photographing Lil Wayne and like Juvenile when they were kids and not that famous. And so, how does that feel for you to see your work now as historic documentation of New Orleans?
I grew up in the Black community. All our grandmothers, aunts, and moms just always had family portraits in the house. And Wayne and Juvenile and all of them. I grew up around Juvenile and stuff like that. We always friends, so it gave me like a front door seat. But hip hop was just taking off. But it always had the second lines and the Mardi Gras Indians. Since my family grew up in a culture, it's like, I don't know, it's like something like it just gravitated and it pulled me to it. So it was never like a job. But it was a job, but it was a fun job because I get to enjoy myself, get paid and stuff like that. My main thing was event photography, the nightclub, the concerts and stuff like that, a jazz fest and stuff like that. And you never really miss it till you don't have it no more. Exactly. And I wasn't looking to doing the book thing or stuff like that. At Tenor Gallery, they reached out to me at a second line. I was like, huh? So we sat down and it just opened doors for me like unbelievable. I'm a photographer with a shoe deal. I thought I was going to get my shoe deal when I was playing sports as a kid, and it didn't work out that way for me. So I was like, wow.
That's good.
That's awesome. I think I'm still on the younger side of the career path making and everything. So I'm learning just in general. And I think this book was a way because I was, again, trying to understand the world that I was living in. And I was writing about it, and I was trying to take snapshots of other people because I'm just fascinated by the relativity of life. And that's why COVID has also been kind of like a fun topic because everyone is responding differently to this external source of, a new life, like how you're going to change to it. So, but anyway, I had a mentor and he basically was just like, you should try to like challenge yourself and take all these old things that you're writing and make a book about it. And so that's essentially what I did because I was more or less like sometimes I can get so wrapped up in the research part of it and like just going out and just having fun and collecting all this information and just kind of like wallowing in it and learning new things. And then I'm like, hey, I learned all this esoteric facts, like what do I do with it? And I realized that like as a writer or as a researcher or as an explorer, anything, you have to funnel everything that you learn into a way that can help other people. So again, exactly how Cheryl's book, I picked it up and I saw all these different pictures and I was like, man, that's a great idea. I love all these pictures. Like, this is so cool. And then later on, it just kind of takes me and then it kind of like gives birth to this other project. So yeah, I still have this one thing under my belt, which is a good little thing that now I have. And I'm excited to see where else it goes.
So do you think that that's the next frontier is, it goes beyond taking pictures, is a photograph still a photograph if it's unseen, right? Or is a film still a film if it's unseen? Or does it take for that additional connection for it to truly be able to be what it's intended to be, right? Like I'm sure each and every one of you probably have a slew of things that the world has never seen, just that's either just for you or just, something that you said, maybe this isn't exactly right for this type of project or what I'm doing right here, right now. I'm sure you can have projects that are just, the throwaway projects, right? So it's like, is the intent for it to be put before the masses, for others to see it and to be able to share in those moments? Polo, if you don't mind taking that away.
Yeah, because I've just really stumbled. I hadn't looked at it. I went to Freaknik for 3 years, 95, 94, and 93. And I was thinking, I got some people in Atlanta. We had been talking about it, so I'm actually about to work on a book. My next book, gonna be trying to get that out for March. It's gonna be on how the scene was out there for the 3 years I went out there. And just going through the pictures about a week ago, I posted some on my Instagram and stuff last week. Some of the pictures I haven't looked at since the 90s. I was like, whoa, did I do that? We was really doing all that. But there's a calling for this. And when I first started my photography work, I wasn't looking in the book part and all this documentary stuff, but I'm actually opening these new doors and new chapters of my life, exhibit life and stuff like that, because some amazing things are starting to happen for me. Actually, the Smithsonian is about to drop the first actual book on the genre of hip hop. And I'm happy to say that 4 of my pictures are going to be in that book. And I grew up during the birth of hip hop. So I used to be in the mirror thinking I was LL Cool J and Run DMC. And having my pictures in this book is going to be, it's like, to me, I've been telling people, it's like me in the green room with LL Cool J and Run DMC and Big Daddy Kane, waiting for him to pass me the mic and get on the stage. So I just can't wait. It's supposed to be January now. They done pushed it back, but it's supposed to be coming in January. But I just can't wait till this day comes.
See, but that's something else too, is like, you took those pictures 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And they're still useful. Like, they still have like a purpose. They still have like, and not only for you, but literally for people at large. Like when we go back and we read all about it, we actually have like a way to visualize and see like what it was like, So that'll be a really cool book.
Yeah, because that was crazy when people had just started comparing me to Jamil Shabazz and saying I'm the New Orleans and the southern region of Jamil Shabazz. I was like, whoa. I mean, that's Michael Jordan, man. Nobody's better than Michael Jordan. Come on. But it's been a blessing, and I'm just trying to, and most of my work, I tell people, is really not about me. It's about the people I was able to photograph and just show my city in a light that people don't talk about. Like you were talking about the tourism and stuff like that. Most of the time when they speak of New Orleans, you're talking about the French Quarters and Bourbon Street and the sports team, the Saints and this, that. But it's just a chance to show the part of New Orleans people don't get to see. I mean, a lot of people have been telling me, like, during Corona, when I first started doing the lives and stuff, like, people saying it was therapy to them, my stuff. I was doing the lives. I had a couple videos I had shot from some concerts and some Indian practice and stuff like that. People was happy for me and telling me keep doing it, because it was like therapy, because at the first part of Corona, we didn't know what was going on. Everybody was just sitting home and on pins and needles. So that just kept me going, and I didn't really know we used to do lives, because at first I got kind of disgruntled, because I think I picked up the idea because D Nice and Captain Charles and all the other DJs was going live, but they was getting tons and tons of followers. When I started off, I was barely getting a couple flowers, but you just need that one person to see your work. And that's what's happening with my book. I think been able to sell my book in 17 countries. Some of the people that's buying the book, and they're telling people, I think I done sold over 100 in New York, maybe 15 in Paris, 30, 40 in LA, across the country, around the world, like 9 up in Canada. I sold 1 in Uruguay. I don't even know where Uruguay is, but I'm thankful, and just be able to represent New Orleans.
It seems that I've noticed that, with many artists that come from New Orleans, it seems as if there's almost like it's like everything that's done is an act of homage to this city, and I wonder if that's the case in other places. I've been other places, but never quite as extensively as I've been here in the city that I was born and raised in. And it seems like
the people here are like giving people and stuff. It's different everywhere else. The places I don't travel is that, I mean, you could meet somebody today or tomorrow. Next thing they inviting you over Monday for red beans and rice or something like that, or a party for the aunt or something like that, or this going on. You never been to Indian practice. Come on, I want you to come really experience Indian practice. You'll love this part of New Orleans. You wouldn't see if you was just stuck in the French Quarter. Or let me bring you to a second line. I've done that to a lot of my friends came in New Orleans for the first time. Now we're gonna do that with you for a while, but let me bring you to this real New Orleans.
The ones that you rarely see, right? Like, I mean, because it's essentially, but it's so interesting because I've come to find that places have staples, right? And so New Orleans has certain staples that it's almost like as someone who is visually portraying the city, do you feel as if you have to stay true to the way that people see this city as? Do you have to include and incorporate things like the French Quarter, like Bourbon Street? Do you have to do things like, or is it more like, would you be more willing to go, let's say, to like the East and just, things and scenes that people do not always see when they think of New Orleans, because there are so many things, so many different facets of this city that people are completely unfamiliar with, and that's, of course, for the positive and the negative, as is with anywhere, but it's those representations. Do you feel as if you also, I guess, have a duty to show people those things as well?
I'd like to answer that, because I came across this dilemma when I did my first book, New Orleans, Life and Death in the Big Easy. I started shopping it around 2008. I had this idea of doing juxtapositions of all these photos that I had, and in a way to show the disparity between rich and poor, black and white. New Orleans, we know New Orleans is a very disparate culture. I mean, it's just, there are people who never cross paths in this city and will never cross paths. And I feel like it was my duty to bring some of these people together. So for instance, when I was trying to get this book published, it was during the recession. It's very expensive to put out a color book, so nobody wanted to do it. So I started asking some of my wealthy clients if they could help me. And one of the best compliments I ever got, and I'm not going to say who it is, a very wealthy woman, she looked through my book and she goes, "This doesn't even look like New Orleans." I said, "It looks like your New Orleans, but this is my New Orleans and a lot of other people's New Orleans." And when I finally, after the economy got good again, my friend said, "Why don't you try to pitch that book again? Because, the economy's better." And it got picked up right away. And I can't tell you how many people came up to me and said, "Thank you for showing, honestly, the real New Orleans, the good and the bad, not just the good." Because you can walk into a bookstore and think New Orleans is Mardi Gras and the French Quarter, and that's it. And I think that's one of the reasons why Sarah Broom's book was so well received, because she wrote about growing up in East New Orleans and how she felt like, that was her home, but she didn't feel that connection to the New Orleans that everybody else knows. She goes away to school and, people are like, "Oh yeah, the French Quarter." And she's like, "Yeah, I live off of Chef Mentor Highway," So I do think it's important to show all the different sides. And when I did the women's book, I did the same exact thing. New Orleans is not just one type of woman. It's not just the rich socialites. They're very much a big part of New Orleans, but it's also the baby dolls on the street. And when we did the book launch, I cried when I saw Cheeky Black walk in right behind the Sisters of the Holy Rosary. And they were all signing autographs for the mayor, for the ex-mayor, for Mitch Landrieu, and all of these like elite women from uptown. I just felt like I did, because all of when you work on a project, it is stressful. You don't know how it's going to be received, and you put it out there, you're going to catch some criticism, most likely. And when I saw those women all signing autographs, and then Jacques Morial came up to me and he goes, "It just goes to show you how underrepresented women have been in this city for 300 years. And I just was like, "Oh my God, okay, I got it right." You don't want to just put out a vanity project for the sake of
it's
vanity.
Like a gumbo. You can't get enough of it.
Yeah, when I was researching for my book, I sat down and did these 2-hour kind of like interviews with people, and I made a cross section of different ages, ethnicities, even like locations, zip codes, anything in New Orleans. And the one thing that everyone kept coming back to is, again, like our personalities, and the fact, like my favorite chapter to write was Kim and she grew up in the Carrollton neighborhood, and she was just like, it is this camaraderie that we have. Like New Orleanians don't live inside of our walls. We live out on our streets. So like when people go and they visit LA or they visit New York or they move there and they think like, "Oh, am I going to have this LA or New York story? Am I going to be like the next movie star or the next like big inventor, like whatever it is. And there's a good chance that no, you'll never have that. Like you'll just have kind of this weird existence that you never achieve what you went there for. But when you come to New Orleans, you're going to get exactly what you think you're going to be getting, you know, like, and it's be a different lifestyle than is wherever that you just visited from, you know. Our neighbors, like, I love the neighborhood that I live in now because my neighbors are always out on their porch. They know everything. Every person who comes by my house, I'll come back home at night and they tell me who's been around, who might have come in and out of my house, who's done everything. And they're just watching the block. And so that's kind of like the friendly, like, it's this camaraderie where like, we're all in it together. Like we know that we have potholes and that our car insurance is awful and that our sewage and water board is awful and that our food is delicious and that, you know, during hurricanes, we're all going to be without power. So we're all going to like team up together. And that's just kind of the amazing feeling that also with tourism, like you can't come here and live like a local. You can come and see it. You can drive by. You can even go to New Orleans East and see people either like barbecuing or doing whatever, go to a restaurant. But at the end of the day, you know, until you kind of come here and you accept the good with the bad and you really sit down and talk with people and not just try to go to Bourbon Street or eat beignets or do whatever. I think that's when people come in and they're like, oh, this is what people are getting from that feeling. You know, it's starting off with breakfast at 10 o'clock in the morning and then just all of a sudden 4 bars and 3 concerts later, it's midnight and you're finally stumbling home and you're like, I have no idea how I just did this today, but it was amazing. And we should definitely wake up and do it again tomorrow. So I don't know. It's something hard that I've even yet to kind of put into words. So.
Well, no, I think you did. I think you did it wonderfully. I mean, that's essentially, it seems as if it's almost like this mentality, right, of us against the rest of the world. And it's like, and we hold very dear to these sentiments, you know, almost to a fault. You know, it's like when you have someone from here that goes off and ventures off elsewhere, oftentimes it's so interesting because I've noticed, and I was that person as well, you know, it's just ready to go out into, I guess, make my way into the world, go to LA, go to California, and just, you know, build this gap between what I thought I was and what I wanted to be. And then coming to this startling realization that it's quite possible that I left the place that was going to put me there, you know, and and you see that and you recognize that, and it's in the culture that you find yourself in. It's among the people. And then it's everyone says the same thing. It's like, right. It's like, yeah, you know, yeah, I went there. Yeah, it was all right. But, you know, it wasn't New Orleans. You know, it wasn't whatever it is that we have here that keeps those who leave either desiring to come back or desiring to leave so they can do enough to where they can come back and be exactly where they want to be here in this city and help those around them in this city. And the
thing is, we know it, right? We know, we appreciate it. I'll never forget when I had to photograph Kermit Ruffins for Gambit after the HBO was going to do the show. And I've known Kermit, we've known each other since we were young. And I said, Kermit,
I'm 19.
I said, Kermit, can you believe, did you ever in your life think you were going to be playing yourself in an HBO series in your neighborhood? And he goes, oh, I always knew.
That's Kermit.
Because, you know, he values New Orleans. He has made a total, you know, he's become an icon because of his love for this city. You know, if you don't love the city, it's not going to love you back. You know, it could be a powerful place to live if you don't like it, you know. So, I think one of the reasons we're all here by choice. We're not here because we want to run away from hurricanes every, you know, summer and deal with the crime and the potholes and oh God, you know, there's something else that's keeping us here.
Absolutely. And in being
like Dorothy on the Wizard of Oz, there's no place like home. I tell people I built me a boat. I'm never leaving this city again. Man, that was a miserable time. I'm not leaving. I done built me a boat. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well,
I'm gonna put a tag on it. It's the worst, but man, got to be here.
Like in terms of being, you know, I guess I heard your perspectives of, you know, being women in this business and you know, also Polo, you know, being a man in this business. How exactly does that translate into what you do? Does that mindset play a part? I know, Leigh said you were working on an all female production cast and, film and or documentary. And I'm curious as to how that, and, Cheryl, with your book on the life of women in New Orleans, it's like, what spawns these ideas? Is it almost like a further representation of what it means to be a woman, or like is there a difference in the approach, or is I'm curious what.
Well, I will say, as a woman, there have been times where I've been discriminated against, for work, but there was also times when I got the job because I was a woman. So you have to know when to take advantage of it and when to stand up, for your rights. As far as doing the book on New Orleans women, that idea came to me really out of the blue. If you remember 2017, January, I forget what day it was, 7th maybe, 5,000, maybe 10,000 women marched through the streets of New Orleans with all the other women around the country for women's rights. And when I saw that, I'm looking through my lens and I'm looking at these women photographed a lot of protests in New Orleans over the last 30 years. This was the biggest one I had ever seen. And then we had just elected our first female mayor. So it just kind of was like,
it was in the air.
It was in the air. And
destiny.
The centennial of women's suffrage coming up. So it all worked out. I knew it was a good idea. The responsibility of doing it was pretty awesome. But when I was doing it, I thought I would just highlight like 50 to 100 women, special women of New Orleans, do a little bio about them. And so I Googled Wikipedia, famous New Orleanians, and I looked at the list, and it was 85% men. When you look at it, you go, oh my God. I mean, yeah, Ellen and Irma Thomas and Chef Leah Chase were on that list, but it was mostly men. And so I said, okay, something's wrong here. So I started looking through my own archives from all of my assignment photography over the years, and it was the same thing. Like, I get assignments to photograph men. The men. Cooking is cooking not a woman's thing? Why do we only have a handful of female chefs? You know? So
my favorite chef is my mom.
Yeah, I mean, the political worlds, the celebrity chef worlds, the musician world. You can go to Jazz Fest.
Yeah.
On some days and not see a female Orleanian headliner. Because I tried to do it when I knew I was doing this book. I said, I'm going to go photograph all the women I can. And I went, I forget if it was a Friday or a Saturday. There was like Irma Thomas, and that was it. There were women in bands, but they weren't the headliners. So.
Well, I think too, because for myself personally, I mean, I think I'm tenacious enough that a lot of times I don't even consider my own gender when I'm going for something. I just go and do it. And I understand too that a lot of times I have been declined because I'm a female, and so they just don't want that kind of energy in the room. I know that I've gotten jobs because I used to be more blonde, but just a blonde white girl coming in, and they're like, cool, that's fine. But again, I love the relativity of life. And so obviously for myself, I have this one outlook and version of life. And in order for me to get stuck in that, I always want to know what other ordinary people are going through. So when I go and look, it's the same thing with tourism. What is it? Okay, you go and you visit Commander's Palace or Antoine's or Cafe du Monde and blah, blah, blah. And you have all these set names, and it's Leah Chase and all these people. And I'm always so much more interested personally in the people who day to day have to grind it out. The day to day people who are sitting there being moms, trying to get places around the city, trying to be in the dance crews, trying to be a queen of a crew, or doing all this kind of stuff. And a lot of times, just historically, women have been giving those supportive roles. In Mardi Gras, it was always about Mardi Gras kings, and then it was just kind of oh, here's the debutante or the daughter that we'll just throw in there too. It was just kind of supporting characters. So I'm okay, well, how do we just get these very normal people and have their stories told? And I think too, coming from Alabama, growing up in Alabama, like very conservative place, and I'm in the LGBT community, and so New Orleans is like this like refuge for myself. And so, you know, now my wife works in healthcare. She works in a hospital as a nurse, and so I've learned so much over the past 2 years about the disparity in between white and black communities on especially like female and women's health, and about like childbearing and everything else, like probably more than I would ever want to know too about it. But I mean, so I have my political beliefs and my things that go along with it, but I love that kind of empathetic way of just going like, yeah, man, like my life is nothing like somebody who lives off of Chef Montour Highway, you know? So when they're about to have a baby for the first time in New Orleans, like what are they thinking about? What are they most afraid of? You know, what are they most hopeful for? Are they already trying to get their kid into a Mardi Gras crew? Or are they really just trying to figure out, hey, how are we going to afford school once they're out of elementary school? You know, so I think it's like literally these day-to-day little bits that are pretty gritty, especially if you live in New Orleans, that for women, we have just historically borne like the brunt of it all, especially minority women. And so again, for myself, I just love people's stories and I always want to hear more and more and more of them. And then obviously the more that I hear, the more I want to share. And I hope that other people will also want to hear.
So all in all, almost in an effort to ensure that no one gets overlooked, that everyone is represented and all cultures are represented, right? So it's like, I mean, that's a big part of it. You know, it's showing not only what it is to be here in New Orleans, but also what it's like to be a woman who is in New Orleans, who is struggling with these honestly, with these issues that so many different people do not understand, you know, but also so many people do understand, right? It's like, these are universal problems that, you know, completely transcend, I guess, the mainstream idea of what it means to live in this city and to be in this city. You know, it's his.
Yeah. And I just think that, I mean, especially since, you know, New Orleans is that little blue dot in the red state. I mean, yeah, like if you kind of get down into it, like women have these even sometimes larger existential issues that we have to consider. You know, like we still, I mean, it still is a question of do you care about your career or having kids sometimes, you know, and I don't think that question is going to stop being asked for a little bit, but I think slowly but surely with each story that's told, you kind of chip away like that mystery of it all. And you can be like, yeah, like they're obviously want to have, you know, this sort of life and live in New Orleans and participate and have fun, but they're also scared about like what they can do for their kids, what the future is going to look like, what they're going to do in their own life. So yeah, I mean, again, I just kind of find everyone's story fascinating, but for sure, definitely female stories are something that I'm looking forward to as more and more of them get told. So,
wow, I mean, we're certainly looking forward to hearing more of them. You know? It's like you understand the lack of representation, especially when you start hearing about them, you know, and then you realize that there's so much that you're not seeing, and then there's a whole lifestyle that you are missing out on simply because either you're reticent to be able to get out of your own comfort zone or to go see these places and to go actually be immersed in these types of events and these cultures. You know, I'm just curious. I know that this is a very loaded question for everyone present, but I have to ask, so what is photography then? What is this medium that brought us all together today that allowed us to be able to share these amazing stories and these amazing insights with others, with the people out there? You know, if you could just start, Polo, what is photography as Polo Silk sees it?
I don't know. I just get a chance to. I'm blessed because I get to celebrate and showcase the New Orleans I grew up, that I know and love and have a passion and drive for. I mean, I wake up every day it's like, to me, it's like every day is like Christmas, I tell people. In this city, New Orleans, you don't have that nowhere else around the world. In Atlanta and some like they have dry counties, you can't have alcohol, they don't have nothing going on. You got clubs stay open all night. I mean, sometimes I wonder how I did it, because sometimes I used to leave a nightclub at 4 or 5 in the morning, had to go to church, and I'm sitting in church looking at my watch. Come on, Pastor, because the second line about to start, and you know, I got to get out there. And, but it's just a celebration of the city, and I'm honored that I was chosen. Feel like just I was chosen for this. I'm just honored I get to showcase this city. I'm just trying to show New Orleans the people that gave me the opportunity to showcase that it's just a showcase to them and whatever they was doing. If they're just sitting on the porch and Emma combing hair, somebody at the second line, somebody sewing or whatever, it just gets a chance just to show New Orleans.
Well, Cheryl, if you don't mind, then.
Gotta unmute. For me, it's the only medium that freezes time. I mean, a split second, you know. I think we are photographers, like you said, we're chosen because we can see. I feel like I'm an observant person. I notice things that a lot of people don't notice. And it's nice to be able to share that moment when you freeze a moment and somebody sees it and it's like, oh, I didn't see that. It happened right in front of you too. You just didn't see it. So it's there forever. I love New Orleans so much. I'm going to freeze as many moments as I possibly can. And hopefully if I ever get dementia, I'll look at the photos and go, wow, somebody had a good life, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I'm with Cheryl on that. Like, again, I think writing is kind of like my forte in general, but you have to be an observant person. Like you have to kind of like pinpoint those little characteristics and everything. But photography does freeze a moment in time. And I think it sparks that curiosity in people like a lot of art does. Like I'm even looking behind Cheryl right now at the picture of the trombone player. And I'm like, man, I wonder if they're like sweating, or I wonder what note they're trying to hit. I wonder if they're happy to be at that gig right now, you know? And like, it's all those kind of things where you're just kind of like looking at it, and with good art, it's that gut, like punch to the gut, where you kind of look at it and you go, I feel something, and you leave, and then you come back and you're like, yeah, I want to keep looking at it, because like whatever's happening internally, emotionally, like I need that photograph like on my wall or on my coffee table or somewhere. And I think, yeah, people are great at it.
By the way, that's Trombone Shorty. And I've been photographing him since he's 4. Let me see if I can. Wearing his little Casio watch.
Oh, no.
I got to tell you, I did for the 25th anniversary of me working at GAN, or maybe, I forgot, it was one of these anniversaries. I pitched this idea to recreate photos I did 25 years ago. And now, and one of the series I did was of the Andrews family in Tremé. And Trombone Shorty he wasn't even Trombone Shorty outside of Tremé, you know, he was just a kid. And we found this place and do the photo. Well, it took, oh my God, the logistics of trying to get Glenn David Andrews, James Andrews, Trombone Shorty all together for the shoot, and then find the exact spot where we took it. First of all, this exact spot is now an Airbnb. So the people, you know, who were shooting the shoot, and Shorty's late, and we're waiting for Shorty, and he drives up in the most expensive Porsche sports car you could ever imagine. So when I was taking these photos 25 years ago, did I think he would be successful? Yeah, I thought he would be a really great New Orleans musician. Did I think he would be who he is now? I don't know. And I wanted to ask Polo about that. When you're photographing all these guys back from the 80s and 90s, did you know that they were going to be big?
I mean, you know, hip hop was supposed to be like a passing fad. None of us threw all of it. And just like your picture of Trombone Shorty, myself, like I got a picture of Soulja Slim behind me. Sometimes you immerse yourself on, you could just that photograph, you can immerse yourself into that photograph and hear them playing. I know I do that a lot of times with artists. I'm looking at their pictures, I like a Juvenile, Back That Ass, or whatever, different songs. I hear those songs playing in my head. Trombone Shorty, just that picture comes alive because I was looking at the trombone player Wolf, who used to play with Rebirth. I was just looking at some pictures of him the other day, and he's like on an angle playing the trombone, but I'm moving around like he'll be moving around, just going with the flow. So they come to life. They really come to life to me.
No, I mean,
I hope that does that for people too, also, when they're looking at it.
Well, I know we're entering our last minute. This has been amazing. All of you are absolutely incredible. This has truly been an honor for me just to be able to listen and talk to you and pick your minds and your brains just a little bit for this hour. But if you'd like to go around and just, you know, give a little information to your latest projects or your books or what's coming out or where things can be found, you know, if you can start that off, Cheryl.
I don't know if I should announce it, but what the heck? I'm not shy. because I haven't gotten a commitment from anybody, but I wrote a book during this pandemic, which I've never done before. It's not a photography book. It'll have photos in it, but it's about me overcoming my ingrained Southern white racism and Southern heritage. If you're from the South and you're white, it's there. I mean, unless you're born into some very liberal family, which I was not. And it takes a lifetime of, overcoming that. And so I'm hoping to get a publisher for that next year.
Nice.
So,
very nice.
It'd be fun.
Polo, you want to go?
Pop That Thing is my book. I'm pushing that right now real hard. It's doing well. I'm getting ready to start. I just dropped some more stuff I really started doing. I call it I got a thing I done built. I'm gonna name my archives after my daughters. It's called Fab Five Legacy Archives. So what I'm doing now is coming out doing some of my own brand instead of people hiring me to wear their brand. What we're gonna be doing, I done started dropping T-shirts with the name. You know how the rock concerts used to have the concerts on the shirts and stuff like that. Well, I'm a collector. I was collecting because of my mom, and I got all these flyers from all the events and stuff I did. So I done started putting some of those on T-shirts, and I'm pushing that and putting them out. And I'm working on this documentary called 2025 Martin Luther King, which is this club. The documentary on this club I shot at for like 9-10 years was just legendary.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think for myself, obviously, go buy my book with Pelican Publishing. It's out at Tubby and Coos and through the Words and Music book link and store. Also happy to meet up if anybody's in New Orleans to sign it and to talk about it, socially distance, obviously. Then, I mean, once things kind of kick back going again, I do have that interactive travel journal that'll be coming out, who my friend designed and drew everything on it. And it's killer. She did a great job on it all. So I'm excited to put that out once things kick back up. And then, yeah, obviously as a documentarian, I'm always looking for partners and funders. So I am in a continuous stage of fundraising, obviously. I have a documentary from Cambodia that I shot like a year and a half ago about what started out as tourism there, but is really about East versus West kind of global influence in Southeast Asia. And yeah, the one about New Orleans female musicians that'll hopefully get a grant and receive some more funding. So again, if anybody's looking to fund the arts, I'm always here.
Wow. Well, certainly a lot of things to look forward to.
Yeah, always.
Works. Like that's amazing. Well, I can't wait to get my copies of each of these and go see this documentary. I mean, these are truly incredible things that I cannot wait to witness and just immerse myself in. I guess this is our time. Unfortunately, I don't want to let you guys go, man. Like, I don't know.
I know, it's so fun.
Yeah, we just getting started. What's going on? It's the game half an hour.
We need to have a party.
Yeah, Paul and Cheryl, thank y'all very much. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
No, thank all of you.
Thank you, Megan. Thanks, everybody.
Incredible.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Megan.
much.
Great.
All right, sweet. Megan, should we sign off or?
So, I love that this panel turned into a love letter to New Orleans, because really that's what this whole festival is, right? Every single discussion or performance has had some sort of New Orleans connection, whether it's someone who lives here, someone who was born here and is now somewhere else, a book about New Orleans, sometimes all those things in one, like with this panel. And I really think that speaks to what we're trying to do as a festival, which is, like Polo said, to really showcase the city and its range of talent and beauty that we have here. And not only is the festival sort of a love letter to New Orleans, but also the festival goes to fund One Book, One New Orleans, which is a community literacy nonprofit that gives literacy resources year-round to low-literate adults and incarcerated adults and teenagers, and also make sure that a book that we choose every year to do community programming around is accessible to the blind and print handicapped through a partnership with WRBH, who will record it and broadcast it cover to cover. So, just like Leigh, we're always in a perpetual state of fundraising, right, to do the work. And Words and Music will fund this community work year round. So to show us some love for this festival, which is accessible on a donation basis, give what you can, whether it's $1 or $1,000. You can do that by clicking those links in the comments on Facebook and YouTube. They are live even if we are not. So if you catch this later, you can still click it. It will work. You can also go to PayPal and donate to I was doing the nonprofit, wordsandmusicnola@gmail.com. And you can also text WAM for Words and Music, WAM 20 to 44321. Suggested donation is $10. We will take whatever you got. And we will see you in exactly 10 minutes for a talk about fantasy and historical fiction and how those things have more in common than one might actually believe. So we will see you in 10